Welcome to Save One Podcast, where we document real life stories of hope and encouragement with a raw, authentic, and unfiltered approach. Join us as we aim to be the beacon of light in the storm of life that gives hope and direction to those who are struggling to find their way in the storm. Hey everybody, appreciate y'all listening in. Today I have Dakota Wells with me. So Dakota lives around here in the Brandon Pearl area, I believe, and a really unique story. So actually, Dakota reached out to me about a month ago and mentioned wanting to come on the podcast, that she has listened to the podcast. She's had her own struggles in life that she's overcome, and so she wanted to come on and share her story. And then as we got to talking about it and I learned more about her story, I absolutely had to get her on here. So, Dakota, thank you for being here today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
I know. So this is your first time on a podcast, right?
It is, and I have very bad social anxiety, and I may act weird and cry, and it may get emotional. So here we go.
It's all right, and that's something I love. And I have different people mention wanting to come on, and one of the things I immediately look for whenever I start talking to people, and I'm looking for guests, is authenticity, vulnerability. And so I appreciate that. I know we're going to talk about some tough stuff.
Yeah, vulnerability is my superpower. I can be vulnerable at the drop of a pen, and it scares most people because most people don't know how to take me.
Yeah. You know, that's something good. I think, so we were talking, you asked for some advice from me the past couple of days with, as you've started sharing, you've learned that it does make some people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's something Danny knows a lot about. I do. Therese, several different ones that all do this. Vulnerability and authenticity scares the hell out of people.
It does.
And it makes them uncomfortable.
It really does.
People who aren't willing to be vulnerable and authentic get uncomfortable around those two things. So that's something you're experiencing right now, huh?
I think people, when they see somebody that's vulnerable, they look at them and they immediately judge them because the society tells us to judge people, and then they judge from a place that it's not whole inside of them. They're still empty, so they can't be vulnerable. That's what I think.
No, that's spot on. So the way I want to start this, don't want to dive into every detail, but I do want to hear just kind of real quick, where you from, age, grew up, and we'll kind of, I wouldn't mind hearing like the quick highlights of some of the things in life, but then I know there's a few we're going to really dive in and talk about and dig off into.
Yeah. So I'm Dakota. I'm from Summit, Mississippi. I'm 26 years old. I grew up in a small one red light town. There was not many people, like maybe 1,500 people in the town. Everybody knew each other. So I went to a high school that was small. It wasn't that small because my graduating class probably had like 700 people. But it was still small. It was small. I grew up barrel racing. I rodeoed from the time that I was 3. I got my first pony when I was 3. We barrel raced. Then I decided that school wasn't really my thing. I wanted to go and like try to pursue something in the rodeo. So I kind of like didn't do sports. I didn't focus on anything. I just focused strictly on rodeo. I didn't even go to I went to one prom at school because I strictly focused on rodeo. So every weekend I was at a barrel race. Every holiday I was up doing anything with rodeo. So that was my life. And it really hindered me because I didn't try to make friends at school. And the friends that I did try to make, I had a very big ego, and I would try to hang out with a popular crowd. So it would be the cheerleaders, the football players, the anybody that had a name. So I guess that kind of like started my story, kind of started me trying to have an ego. but I never really felt accepted. I never really did anything like felt accepted
Yeah.
or anything. So, yeah. Uh,
Is that kind of where you started struggling kind of internally at
yes,
that
that's.
point?
I think
And
that's where I struggled internally because I was trying to hang out with the wrong people, and I just didn't think about it at the time because I was a kid, so I didn't think about it. Well, then my junior year, the end of my junior year, it was Memorial Day. I just graduated. No, it was the end of the junior year in May. I just like graduated
Mhm.
junior year, going to my senior year. So it was Memorial Day, a Monday, and we were leaving the pool. I remember I was leaving, going to a friend's birthday party. Her name is Brooklyn Hutsmith. I'd never been invited to a birthday party from anybody at school. I was so excited. And I remember telling my mom, I'm going to this because I had never been invited anywhere. Well, I remember being on Jackson Liberty Road and uh, I was driving. I drive fast. I have a lead foot. I really do. I have a lead foot. And I was still in high school, and my first ticket in high school, I was driving from a road and it was 40 over. That was my first ticket. So that tells you how fast I was driving. So, on this road, it was a very bad curve. And I went around this curve and I looked down cuz saw something rolling under my floorboard, and I was trying to pick it up and get it. Well, the next time I looked up, I was off the side of the road. And I remember flipping the car 5 times. I hit a culvert. There was light poles that I missed, and it's the week before where I flipped. Um, there was a big dozer there. So I shouldn't have walked away from that wreck. And I think that was the moment that I realized that I had a purpose, that I stayed here for something.
Yeah.
And it was the week prior, there was this barrel racer that had a wreck. She was leaving her house and she lived in front of a train track. Her name is JC Beth Thomas. Y'all can look up her story. She's big and famous. But I remember her having that wreck, and she walked out. She couldn't walk. She stayed in the hospital for like a year. And I remember so often after me having my wreck, walking out with just um a seatbelt burn and a scar. I was like, why did God let JC go through that and let me survive? I'm a nobody. I didn't have no story. I mean, I was okay in school. I did barely just enough to get by. Um, Rodeo, I wasn't that good. I thought I was better in my head. I think we think we all are better in our
Yeah.
head. But I wasn't that good. I was like, I questioned that for so long. Why did God let me survive this? And I think being 26 now, I finally know the reason that my story is going to change people
Yeah.
and that I can help people. And that happened. Um, I'm not going to sit here and say that life is easy because it's not. I've been through a lot of struggles,
Yeah.
and it wasn't linear. Senior year was okay. I should add my parents got a divorce in middle school, so that kind of messed me up. I went through with separate like divorced parents, and I just felt broken and felt like something wasn't wrong with me. And I went to college. I didn't stay in college 2 years. I lacked math from getting my associate's degree. I hate math. I couldn't do math, and I went to college and I didn't get my associate's degree. I got out, and just basically for the last, how long is 2017 till now? Is that like 10 years? 6 years?
We're getting close. About
um
8 years. Yeah.
I haven't done really much of anything.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
had like low end little piddle jobs, but I
Yeah.
haven't really done anything. And then in 2020, my grandma died, and that really broke me. It sent me over the edge because my parents had got a divorce, so my dad moved back with my grandma and back home. So, and I was mad at my dad, so I never really went and saw my dad. And in turn, I didn't go and see my grandma. So, when she died, a part of me died, an anchor that I didn't know that
Yeah.
was an anchor that I didn't need. Um, so I don't even at her funeral, I didn't even feel worthy enough going up to the casket. I wouldn't go up to the casket because in my head I was like, I didn't go see her while she was here. Why do
Yeah.
I get to see her now? So that really hurt me. 2020 was COVID too. The year that COVID was going. So before COVID hit, we was at a cowboy church and I was sitting there and I looked up and there was two flags in front of and behind the preacher, an American and a Christian. And right in that moment, God laid the word serve on my heart. And at the time, I was broken. A broken individual etched a serve etched in my heart. So,
Well, before I know where that's going.
yeah.
Before we go into that,
Yeah.
um, you mentioned two big things a minute ago, and so I kind of want to dive into something a little bit. Let's cover this part of your life. So that teenage
Yeah.
time period,
Yeah.
middle school teenage time period. You mentioned two things there: the wreck and the divorce. But because I'm curious, that kind of 18 and younger
Yeah.
age period. What what was the biggest event in your life? What was the most impactful? What shaped you? Because that's something I care about a lot. And
Yeah.
I have some nieces in that age. My
Yeah.
mom works at a school. I hear a lot of stories. Is
Yeah.
there's so much about us that are formed in those pivotal years, especially middle school and through high school, kind of. So what was the biggest one?
I'm glad you asked that because I've been trying to search for that myself.
Yeah.
Growing up the way that I did, I had an older brother. He was 10 years older than me. I had loving parents and I had everything a family should have because my parents were together for 19 years.
Okay.
So I had this big whole thing, but somewhere along getting bullied in school, not fitting in, and just telling myself, because my brain, every day now, every time back then, and even now, my brain tells me 90 times a day, I'm a piece of crap. I'm not worth anything. That's
Yeah.
what my brain tells me. I fight that every day. That's where the warfare came in. So growing up, I don't remember much of my childhood. Uh, Me and my mom talked about it. She said I had a good childhood, but I don't remember it. And I think people think, "Oh, you're crazy because you can't remember trauma." Trauma really messes people up.
Yeah.
Trauma erases memory.
Well, it sounds to me like you were kind of in survival mode.
Yeah, I really was.
And so I, I can relate to that.
Yeah,
And a lot of people who've been on this podcast, as well as many other that Audio Alchemy produces, have a lot of great stories where you see that trend.
yeah,
Um, like many people do not realize that growing up, I had the ideal family.
yeah,
I wouldn't say I was one of the popular kids.
yeah,
I was known. I had great
yeah,
friends. But I will say many people have no clue that I was extremely insecure.
yeah,
I never felt like I was authentic. I never felt like I fit in, and I compromised myself in that I was always wanting to impress everybody.
yeah.
Now, the
That's
bad
me.
thing was is kinda like a toddler, um, I did that in a lot of really bad ways.
Yeah,
I acted out, I wanted it was like I wasn't the smart one, I wasn't the top athlete, I wasn't that so it was like, well, bad behavior gets me attention also.
yeah,
And then, with friends and all, I think a lot of times about this, I probably really missed out on a lot of really wonderful people
yeah,
and being friends with a lot of really wonderful people because I was trying to fit in so much with the
yeah,
wrong crowd, and like it sucks to admit, but like back then the kids that I'd be like, oh man, I'd never hang out with them. Man, that might have been some great friendships that I
yeah,
missed out on.
yeah.
So it kind of sounds like we have some similarity there, kind of like you were kind of running from your authentic self,
I was.
and then of course I'm kind of curious to hear about your parents going through the divorce.
So that's a really hard, touchy subject because I was 12 years old
Yeah.
and I don't want to out anybody, and
And let me be clear,
yeah,
not the details of
yeah,
that, because divorce is such a large
yeah,
topic. There's so many variables to it. There's so many unknowns
yeah,
when people go through divorces from the outside looking in. What I'm curious about, because I think what is universal is the impact that it
yeah,
has on kids, whether they're
yeah,
very young, that 10, 12-year-old or teenage. I know it affects at
yeah.
different levels. What was the effect on you at that time?
So the effect on me was really bad because I'm the one that found my dad cheating on my mom.
Okay.
So being a kid and finding that, I saw stuff that I shouldn't have saw being a kid. And I remember years when I kept that from my mom for like a year and a half because I was like, I can't tell this. I can't do it. And I remember one morning at the bus stop, I just broke down and told my mom, I was like, you're being cheated on. This is bad. And she literally looked at me and said, "You're lying. This ain't true." And I said, "Yeah, it is." And then she dug around and like got into it. And I remember my mom is a saint. She tried to make her marriage work for probably 6 years after that. She kept taking him back, taking him back, taking him back. And when it finally busted up, I was in tears. I thought it was my fault. I thought my parents didn't love me. I because your parents, I'm the one that found everything. So I busted up the
Yeah.
marriage, is what I thought. And for a long time, I was mad at myself because I thought I wasn't enough for them. So that's why they split. Um, because the
Yeah.
parents are supposed to love the children. So I thought it was my fault the whole entire time. And that was the reason that I didn't go see my dad for a while because I was mad at him. Because after I got done being mad at myself, I turned the blame on him and I said, "You're the reason that the family busted up. You're the reason that we don't have a whole family anymore." And I was mad at him for a long time. And
Yeah.
I finally have hit a piece. I'm like, you know, he did some very bad stuff, but it wasn't him. It was the devil. The devil tries to ruin marriages every single day, and he just wasn't strong enough to resist temptation. So he got broken.
Man, I'm glad you say that. And, I know through different people I talk to and stuff
Yeah,
like that, there's a lot of adults, even in their 30s and 40s, that still kids are impacted by that,
yeah,
and they carry a lot of guilt around that.
they
It
do.
seems like I hear that from a lot of people
They
that
do.
they blame themselves in some form or
Yeah,
fashion, whether they blame themselves then or they do later in life. Um, but I love what you say though, because it's never the kid's fault.
yeah,
I am divorced. Everybody knows that. Um, I worry about that with my kids. Now they're babies. But I do worry about them carrying any kind of guilt. And so that's why I always take the opportunity to ask people who were
yeah,
their parents did divorce, because like that's probably one of the top priorities in my life, is to try
yeah,
to navigate that for my kids to where they never think that it was their fault.
yeah,
Because what I worry about, and I've seen it, I've heard it, I've watched it, is when you take that guilt of that situation, and it kind of sounds like this might have been where you went to, is it affects you so far down the road,
it does.
and all those things just start compiling, especially if they're not ever dealt with.
I see it. It's affecting me right now, being at 26, because my dad stopped having a relationship with me when he started doing what he was doing, and now every time I go to try to look for a man, I search for my dad, and
Yep.
like I look for the love in another person that my dad should have given me. So it's really affecting me now because relationships these days aren't what they used to be. Everybody just wants to hook up.
Yeah.
So, finding love in this generation is rare.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't until I recently learned that the only love I can fulfill what I'm trying to find is through Jesus. So,
Yeah. That's good.
yeah,
And that really That is the answer. And look, I screw it up constantly. Being in the dating world, I screw it up constantly
Yeah.
because I have my trauma, my baggage, my things
Yeah.
that affect me, and then other people do. Um, but I've kind of gone down similar path, and in that I was looking for art for fulfillment,
Yeah.
validation. I was
Yeah.
looking for things in the wrong way, and like I said, I've gotten to the same point where I realize like I have to love myself. You know, there's some big
Yeah.
tough guys that can't stand to say that, but you'll get there one day.
Yeah.
Is I have to love myself first, um, and I have to realize that God
Yeah.
is is the only thing that can fully fulfill me. Everything
Yeah.
else is a bonus past that. So
That was my biggest thing. I've spent my whole entire life not loving myself, and it wasn't recently until about 2 years ago that I finally found what self love is.
yeah,
Um, my whole entire life, I've always put others before me because that's what Jesus tells us to do. So I never consider my feelings above everybody else. I always put everybody else on a pedestal above me. So, in doing that my whole entire life, everybody's just ran over me, like completely ran over me. And the last 2 years, I've finally found what self love, self worth, self acceptance, all that is. And the last maybe 6 weeks, I don't know. I've had a big shift the last 6 weeks. The last 6 weeks, I've listened to a lot of podcasts and healing. And the last 6 weeks, I've learned I'm a complete and total wreck. So I've been trying to heal myself. So I've started all these boundaries, and people are like, "Oh my God, we can't run over her now. What's wrong? Like,
yeah.
what are you doing?"
That's the you see people say this all the time. It's like being what is it? Being alone is dangerous
Yeah,
when you get comfortable
yeah,
with it. Um, and, and that's true. But also, I want to say you said something earlier that caught my ear. When you said how you would talk to yourself.
yeah,
Uh, I I historically was one of the worst people in the world about that. The way I pushed through pretty much everything in life.
yeah,
If I was trying, I all the time looked at myself as I was never good enough. I
yeah,
was never as good as this person and that person. I was always chasing something to try to prove myself,
yeah,
but I talked to myself absolutely horrendously.
yeah,
You know, I've joked on here before about I've been through the fire academy, I've been through the police academy, and I literally thought it was funny how they would try to talk to us because it's like, man, if you heard how I just cussed myself out
yeah,
all the time, and but that's a disease.
yeah,
You know, I want to take a moment and talk about that real quick. That's a disease.
yeah,
That is something. It's an infection that happens. I
yeah,
would tell myself forever. I was a piece of shit. I
yeah,
was ugly. I was fat. I was a horrible husband. I didn't deserve the
yeah,
family I had. I didn't deserve the jobs. I just always looked at myself as I didn't deserve whatever it was that I had
yeah,
at the moment. Even when I had all these great things, and yeah, I'd worked for them, I earned them. I haven't really been given a ton of stuff,
yeah,
but I beat myself up so bad. And what it is, you start believing that lie.
yeah,
You know, everybody wants to talk about how other people talking about you affects you, or mental
yeah,
abuse, or even physical abuse, trauma, all that stuff from other people. We abuse ourselves
we do.
oftentimes worse than anybody else
I know.
can.
I'm glad you said that because the gym I used to go to, there's a girl there. She was my sister-in-law's friend. She used to put me down every single day. And I never had the courage to stand up to her. I never had the courage to say, "Please stop." And now looking back, I wish I would have because I don't think she would have bullied me as much because if she would have known I was bullying myself every single day. She didn't have
Yeah.
to do it. She didn't have to do it. I was doing it to myself. And you said about talking negative to yourself. Uh, Probably 4 months ago, I was big on David Goggins. And you know
Oh
how
yeah.
David Goggins says you need to tell yourself you're a piece of crap every single day? That's what
Yeah.
I was doing. Well, instead of helping me, it was bringing me down because I
Yeah.
started to believe it. And I thought I was helping myself, but I wasn't. Um,
So, you say that I'm gonna give you something to think about here. Uh, I'm a huge book guy.
yeah,
I read constantly. If you see me with headphones in, especially, it's either a podcast or an audiobook.
yeah,
And it's awesome. My business, I do lawn care, I do pressure washing. So I have headphones in about 7, 8 hours a day. So I can knock out an audiobook in a day. But what you're putting into your body, what you're listening to,
yeah,
what you're saying to yourself, it is just as important, if not more important, than the food or anything else you're putting in your body. And so one of the things that I think about a lot, and I have a podcast next week that I'm really excited about with a gentleman that we're probably going to talk about this a lot because he's a huge book guy. He's a huge leadership guy.
that's cool.
Back whenever I left the fire service, I went into business. I was pursuing money, and it's all I thought about. And it was the downfall of me in a lot of ways. At that time, everything I was listening to was on success, measuring a man by the money, by the title, by the success. Your wife's not going to love you enough if you can't provide all this. That's all that was going in my head. And so I flew through the ranks at the business I was at. I went from making hardly any money to a ton of money really fast. And I got to the top and I had everything. And I absolutely hated my life
Yeah,
because all this stuff that I'd been listening to and judging myself on was unfulfilling. And like, I love some David Goggins.
yeah.
I listen to him all the time.
Me too.
I love some David Goggins. However, guys like that, they can also be dangerous for
Yeah,
people who don't know how to take that message and apply it properly to their life. Because like, I understand now, if it's a gym thing, or man, I'll be honest, there's days where I'm beat to heck and back and I don't want to work anymore that day.
yeah,
I'll put some Goggins on because, sitting there telling myself, man, don't be weak,
yeah,
don't be a pansy, suck it up. That's good in that moment. And I understand that. And if you listen to David Goggins, but you haven't listened to or read his books
yeah,
to know his whole story, then it's dangerous in my
yeah,
opinion, because what he's talking about, he's not calling himself a piece of shit that day.
yeah.
He's calling the past version of himself, that
Yes.
that person that wants to creep in and bring him down and make him be lazy and all that. So that's where I do worry, and I have people ask me sometimes, "Hey, what books do you recommend?" Different stuff like that, and I'll usually preface some of them.
Yeah.
For instance,
That
that way is, "Hey, be careful as you listen to this. Understand, dive
yeah.
in and understand that it's same way. Like, I hate the old version of me.
Yeah, me too.
The old version of me is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And so when I see that guy want to creep in for a moment, yeah, I'll talk mean to
Yeah.
him and I'll let him know you need to get out of the picture. But the version of me today, no, it's a good one. And
Yeah.
so I'm not calling myself that. So I think that's okay to
Yeah.
have that mentality.
I think it is too because I Ryan Padone, she's a barrel racer. She sent me the "You Can't Hurt Me" book by David Goggins.
Yep.
I've read that book cover to cover 15 times, just engraving that in my brain. Because really, you can't hurt me. Uh, you don't pay my bills. You don't do anything, and really, feelings. If it's my feelings, you can't control my feelings. Like, I've learned that now. I used to let so many people control my feelings. Now I've learned that I'm the only person that can control my feelings.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do listen to David Goggins in the gym, but outside of the gym, I don't like gym me and like real me are totally two different people. And I say that, but really we're the same person.
Yeah.
When I first started the gym, I was listening to Christian music. I had a whole playlist of, and then I got in my head and it was like, I see all these gym girls and they're hard and they're hardcore, and I'm like, I need to change myself so I can do it. So then I started listening to Kevin Gates, rap, Kluba Khan, whatever, Kluba, the screamo music.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to say it. And don't get me wrong, I love music. I love listening to all. I have 10,000 songs liked on Spotify,
Yeah.
but the period of the time that I was trying to make myself hard and not be vulnerable and post all these mysterious photos, I was absolutely miserable. And it wasn't until I set that down probably 8 months ago and realized that you can't be mysterious. Your personality is bubbly and you can't be mysterious. I mean, even my friend from Fort Walton, Florida, she said, you need to be mysterious. No guy's ever going to talk to you because you post everything and you have a bubbly personality and they're probably going to think you have ADHD. Well, I do have ADHD and all that other stuff, so I can't hide who I am.
Yeah. And it's okay. I have a lot of different, I guess, versions of myself in that, like right now, I'm not working out. I'm not
Yeah.
training with the business, with this, with
Yeah.
the nonprofits, with the kids. I'll be honest, I have fallen off the wagon and I hate it with working out. But oh no, don't get me wrong. Now in the truck's probably gonna be Christian music,
Yeah.
podcast, audiobook. I go in the gym, yeah. It's Kevin Gates, it's Eminem, it's David Goggins,
Yeah.
it's Lil Wayne, it's all that. And like I like training with people
Yeah.
who in that moment, in regards to the physical training, are gonna look at me and be like, "Hey dude, why are you choosing to be a pansy today? Like,
Yeah.
shut up whining, let's go." And that in that situation, that's fine. Now, when we start talking about emotional stress, mental health, stuff like that, that is
Yeah.
not the kind of attitude that you
Yeah.
need to have. I talk about it very openly. That's where I failed so much, is that used to be how I looked at it.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's important to understand what's going in your head,
Yeah.
and having the right balance. But there's kind of an underlying thing, and what you've been saying, what I've been saying is, until you're comfortable with yourself,
Yeah.
and until you know how to love yourself,
Yeah.
that's when people can hurt you.
Yeah.
It's really neat that once you accept you for you,
Yeah.
and you love yourself, you're proud of who you are, and you're pursuing something with purpose, yeah, nobody can hurt you.
Yeah.
And that that's what David Goggins is saying, by the way, of can't hurt me.
Yeah.
You could hurt him back in the day. He was a very weak individual.
Yeah.
You can't hurt him today
Mm-mm.
because he knows what he believes in. He knows what he's doing. He's happy with himself. And he kind of has, I was telling you, if you don't mind me talking about this, you did ask me this week
Yeah.
about how, now that you're kind of stepping out, telling your story about, some people not supporting that.
Yeah.
And I've been kind of going down that same thing. Me and Therese April have been talking about this a lot lately, is there are so many friends
Yeah.
that were with me for decades that are nowhere to be found now. And
Yeah.
it's because I'm a different version of myself.
Yeah.
And I have drawn some hard boundaries.
Yeah.
And it's, call me arrogant, call me cocky, I don't care.
Yeah.
Is I know who I am.
Yeah.
I know I have a good heart. I know what I'm pursuing. I want to pursue things with purpose. I
Yeah.
know where I'm going. And if you don't want to be along for that ride,
Yeah.
allow me to open the door so that you can get out
Yeah.
of the room. Like, plain as day, don't care who you are.
Yeah.
If you're not adding benefit to where I'm wanting my life to go in the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, then I don't have time and
Yeah.
energy for you. And if that means I sit alone, then I'll sit alone, because
Yeah.
it's okay. I can talk to myself, kind of thing.
That's me. I've kind of cut people out of my life. Like, I don't want them back. Growing up, I told you I didn't have many friends, but I could consider 2 people that were really my childhood friends. I don't want them back in my life. They probably knew me for 19, 15 years. I don't even remember, but I don't want them back in my life. I'm glad of the memories we made, but now that I've healed, and I've realized they've made me feel small and unseen
Yep.
and not worthy. So, and they're probably mad at me because I haven't reached out. I haven't. One of them just had a baby, and I haven't even. I've seen pictures, and it breaks my heart that I can't even. I the unhealed version of me wants to reach out and say, "Hey, I'm glad you had a baby. I want to give you a gift." But this new version of me says, "No, you've made a boundary. You're gonna stick to it. You're not gonna be weak." And a part of me feels that I'm being cruel because of that, but I know that's the unhealed pleaser.
I was about to say, I mean, I'm no therapist, but
Yeah,
I want to try to give you some advice on that. I won't get it right because I don't remember anything
yeah,
verbatim, but there's a lot of stuff around people come into your life in and out of your life for seasons.
yeah,
Some are there your whole life. Very, very few. Those are probably going to be family and should be spouse, but
yeah,
unfortunately, even spouses don't stick around through all the seasons. But especially friends. Um, some people come in for a season and they serve a purpose and they get you through a part of life that was happening or whatever, and they've served their purpose. And it's okay for them to not be there for the rest of your life.
yeah,
And it doesn't mean that the friendship ends in a
yeah,
ugly way. I have guys that I was friends with for decades that
yeah.
I don't talk to now. But if they called today in trouble and needed something, I'd be there in a heartbeat.
Same.
And that's okay. And I used to deal with that really bad because I had in my mind, well, heck, by the time I'm, in my 30s, in my 40s, in my 50s, I'll have tons of friends because I'm just going to take everybody along the way. Well, now I see, and I can look back, and that's part of healing. That's part of it, going through therapy, learning, reading, understanding yourself better. Is there's people that when I look back now, my first reaction is, man, I do miss them. I hate
Yeah,
that we're not friends. I hate that we don't hang out. But then I look at, man, what did they give me?
yeah,
They gave me a lot during that time,
yeah,
but they're not equipped or capable to really be part of what I'm doing now,
yeah.
and that's okay.
That was big. I had to learn that,
Yeah,
and I think that's why I'm 26 and just finally starting to heal because my heart's big, and I have loyalty. Loyalty means a lot to me. So if I tell you I'm your friend, if I tell you I have your back, I'm gonna have your back. And for so long, I tried to bring everybody around. And think of it. I heard a pastor. Think of it as like a crab in a bucket. A crab by itself is gonna try to get out. If you put 2 crabs in a bucket and they're both crawling, it's gonna bring it down. So you
yeah,
need people around you that bring you up, not bring you down. So that's I had to cut off the people that were bringing me down,
yeah,
and I'm still learning. I'm not perfect.
and that's the thing. You'll keep learning. You
Yeah,
you will keep learning. And being at 26, I wish I could go back to 26. I mean, Lord, I think about what all's happened since I was 26. I got married when I was 26, so that
that's
was
cool.
a marriage ago, 2 kids ago, a few careers ago. Um, you're gonna change a lot, but
Yeah,
what is good, and I want to encourage you, is you've learned a lot so far. I mean, like
I have.
think about this. You're at 26. You're learning a lot of the same lessons I'm learning at
Yeah.
37. So you're about to be 10 years ahead of me.
I'm glad you said that. My best friend told me that. My best friend, her name's Courtney Savoy. It's probably Savoy. She gets on to me all the time because I say it wrong. But she's the best friend I've ever had. And people wouldn't realize we're 17 years apart. She's 42.
Yeah,
And she probably ain't gonna like that. I just told her age. But she said the exact same thing. She said, "You're learning before I did."
yeah,
And that's cool. And she says I help her. And I don't know how I help her because she helps me more than I know. She's the best friend I've ever
yeah.
had.
Like, and that's something I have some guys in my life that they're 15 years older than me. They're
Yeah,
they're up around 50, even in their 50s. I've talked to guys in their
yeah,
60s that they say the same thing to me. They're like, "Man, I give anything if I'd have learned what you're learning
Yeah.
at 37, because I didn't learn it until I was 55. I was 60. And I think about that. That's why I think it's really good to have friends that are, or at least friends is a weird term.
Yeah.
I what friends mean to me is very different than some others.
Yeah.
I'm super loyal also.
Yeah.
Like, I'm extremely loyal. And so if I call you friend, that means a
Yeah.
lot coming out of my mouth.
Yeah. Same.
Acquaintances, I have a lot of those. And so where I was going with that is I try to have people younger than me. I try to have people older than me.
Yeah.
One, I want to be able to pour into people. I also want people to pour into me, but then it also allows a perspective. And that's something also that I wish I would have done different. If I could give any advice of, hey, you're 10 years behind me, surround yourself with diversity. It, I see so many people, and I was one of these, where if you look at their friend group, if you look at who they're surrounded by, they're literally the same version of each other with
Yes.
different clothes on.
Yes.
Well, to some people, they think that's wonderful. To me, I think it's a huge negative, because I've actually found now that I would rather talk to somebody who is very different than me, and whether that's different in beliefs, career, stages of life, everything, because there's stuff I've been around. I've learned some incredible lessons
Yeah.
from guys that are in their very early 20s. And it gives me a perspective of kind of where I've come from, what I've done.
Yeah.
But then I also really try to listen to people that are older than me.
Yeah.
And so that's something. I'm glad you do that.
Yeah.
I think that's going to help you
That's
a
cool.
lot. I wish I'd have known that at 26. I wish I'd have paid attention to it more.
I've seen it both ends of the spectrum because I grew up fat. I I've lost over 120 pounds. So most of my life, the heaviest I was 300 pounds. So I've seen it where people don't want to be friends with me. And even now, I guess that I look like I do, people are intimidated by me. Like just this past week, I tried to help somebody in the gym and she was rude instead of being nice. And I just kept thinking to myself, why are you being rude to me? Like, if anything, I'm intimidated by you because she was skinny and I still don't think I'm skinny. It's my head. My head tells me I'm still
Yeah.
fat. And I don't know. It's people people are just people
Yeah.
and you just have to take them how they are. And if once you realize that everybody's fighting a battle and they're really not mad at you and they're just projecting, your life will change.
There again, you already know something that I wish I'd have known. You just hit the nail on the head. The saying I use, I say it almost every podcast, I think, probably is, I did the best I could at the time with
Yeah.
the knowledge, the skills, and the experiences I had. And when I so my journey of forgiveness and grace, I thought I needed all these people to forgive me for me to be able to forgive them. Well, then when I went through therapy, I learned the big lesson around forgiveness of I had to forgive myself
Yeah.
for so many things. And that saying is what got me to be able to forgive
Yeah.
myself. Well, then once I did that, now it's kind of funny. Nobody can hurt me also, because anybody who hurts me in any way
Yeah.
imaginable, is I look at it and I say, man, I wonder what they're going through,
Yeah.
because they're doing the best they can
Yeah.
with the skills and the experience and the knowledge they have.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who are I don't know any better word for it other than they're ignorant
Yeah.
to emotional intelligence, communication. They may have not been through anything in life that broke them,
Yes.
and so
Yes.
they can't understand being broken, or they don't educate themselves.
Yeah.
And so that's that's what leads me to a lot of
Yeah.
grace. There's only I tell everybody there's only two things I can't forgive. You ever touch my kids, you will
Yeah.
learn how horrible of an individual I can be. Other than that, you can hurt me any way possible.
Yeah.
And because I have found, and as I went through therapy and I had to examine, some of these things that have happened in life where I've held bitterness or a
Yeah.
grudge or whatever.
I think I'm still learning forgiveness. I held bitterness a lot. In 2022, I was hurt, and I think just now, 2025, like 3 weeks ago, I finally forgiven everybody.
Yeah.
So in 2022, this is the story.
Hold
Everybody.
on. I wanna get to that. I'm gonna stop you. I usually
No,
don't.
it's not that story. It's a
Okay.
different story.
Well, real quick, I want to back up because I was gonna segue to this a while ago. The big part of your journey that a lot of people have watched is the weight loss.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that a little bit because that is so encouraging to a lot of people. And so let's kind of fill me in on that. What's that look like? I know you got into a lot of fitness stuff. You've completely changed
I
your outward
I
appearance.
did.
But what I care more about than that is how has that changed you on the inside?
So on the inside, I used to be the most unconfident. I had low self confidence. I had my self worth. I didn't have anything, and I used to be just a broken individual. So, in 2019, I got into the gym, and I didn't go to a gym. I went to a gym that was right by my house. It was a man, Jeff Rayburn. He told me I could go to his gym, so I went there every single day, and I was getting in shape for the national finals rodeo. I was gonna go to the back number ceremony. My ego. I was gonna go to the back number ceremony, wear a long black dress, and try to fit in with all them other people. So I wanted to be in shape. I remember in 2019, I lost about 40 pounds, and I thought I was getting in shape for rodeo and barrel racing and to just do everything. So in 2019, I did that, and I remember I felt okay about fitness, but it never really stuck. I went to the gym probably for 6 months, but it never really stuck. So that happened, and then in 2022, at the end of the year, I think it was in October. I don't know. Um, yeah, this is still like I've never really spoke on this because a lot of people has asked me to go on a podcast and speak about this, and I
Hmm.
said I wouldn't. I don't want to. But I think the healed version of me needs to tell my story and needs to like show that I'm not gonna back down. That I didn't appreciate what happened to me, but I forgive you. I forgive what happened to me, but I didn't appreciate it, and I want to start off with that we went through the motions and we did a lawyer and had everything and it came back okay. It came back clean. It came back. I was not the person. So that happened
Can
in
we
2022.
can we go into that?
Yes, I'm trying to
Okay.
go into that.
All right.
In 2022, I guess this person, she was a professional whale racer. She didn't have the season that she wanted or hoped for or anything. And I don't know what was going through her mindset. I don't know. Truthfully, I don't know. But she proceeded to pin something on me that I'd never done in my whole entire life. I wouldn't do that. I looked up to her. I thought she was God because I was still putting people on a pedestal, and I thought rodeo people was God. That was my idol. And you know how God don't like idols. Well, I put all them people on an idol, and she pinned something on me that ruined my life at the time. I got messages that you should die, you're fat, nobody cares about you, uh, you're nobody, and that broke me to my core. And looking back, I think God was breaking my ego and breaking my identity to show that you put all this faith in people and they just broke you. So, that
Are you
happened,
are
and
you
then
are you comfortable with saying what happened?
well, I don't really know what happened because all I saw was what she posted on Facebook, and it was death threats she got, and she thought I was sending her all these death threats.
Okay.
So,
So you were accused of possibly sending her
yeah, I was
death threats.
accused of
Okay.
sending her death threats because I had been around her and looked up to her, and like I'm the person that if I look up to you, I'm gonna look up to you. I'm gonna try to praise you and make you feel like the best person, and that's basically what I did when I was around her all the time. I would always want to talk to her. I'd want to get her advice. I'd want to do everything. And I was always kind to her. I remember the first time I met her, I had heard her story and I told her, I was like, "You inspired me. You were my inspiration." And I did the same thing with Fallon Taylor. I remember crying like I just met Mickey Mouse when I met Fallon Taylor. And I was probably 20 years old. But yeah. So that happened, and in 2022, I remember going to the track. I would go at the track at 12, like at 12 at night, because I was scared to go in front of people. I was just trying to search for something to like get me out of this funk. So I would walk, and like then I got a gym membership. My dad got me a gym membership, so I got in the gym, and I was like, this makes me happy now. And I was still at the time trying to do rodeo and fitness because we still had a horse, so I would still ride. But then I just said, you know what? I give up horses. So completely gave up horses, and it was 2023. I got in the gym and completely got in the gym, and fitness, it just stuck. So when I say fitness saved me, it saved me. And then when I found the bodybuilding community, they really saved me because I felt like a piece of crap that I didn't have friends like I have now. And the bodybuilding, it completely saved me.
That's awesome. So you got into the fitness side, got
Yes.
into working out,
Yeah.
lost quite a bit of weight.
Yeah.
How much have you lost?
I don't know. The last time I stepped on the scale, I didn't like it because I'm gaining muscle.
Yeah.
So the last time I stepped on the scale, it was probably like around 120, 130 pounds I've lost.
Wow. What was the time like how long did it take you to lose that?
It's been probably 2.5 years I've been working
Okay.
at it. Yeah.
So the reason I bring that up and what I want to talk about because and not just in fitness, not just in weight loss, but
Yeah.
in so many things in life, one of the things I've been really studying lately is discipline.
Yeah.
So, people I was listening to some podcasts yesterday actually. And they were talking about how everybody looks at you
Yeah.
for overnight excess.
Yeah.
So, you go to your Instagram and you see some of the pictures
Yeah.
of I know you've done some bodybuilding shows and all
Yeah.
that. So you're in this cut phase, they see,
Yeah.
oh, you lost all this weight.
Yeah.
What they don't see is the 2.5 year process.
Yeah.
And that's where people get so discouraged.
Yeah.
Whether you're building a business, whether you're losing
Yeah.
weight, whether you're working on your mental health, whether you're learning a new skill, whatever it is, it don't come
Yeah.
overnight. And so I know that journey was probably because I know a lot of people who have kind of been through that journey. It's probably a little bit of a roller coaster. It's not all
It
just
yeah.
uphill, looks great, and you're just every day shedding weight.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that. How did you keep going?
Sometimes I don't even like know how I got to the gym. At one point, there was a week that I was completely out of it. I didn't have no motivation. I didn't have anything. It's discipline. And I remember texting my friend. I was like, I don't even want to be here. Why am I here? And she says, discipline. Your body is in a routine. So you show up. You're just going to show up because that's your routine. And I'm glad you said that. The bodybuilding, there's a stigma that everybody looks like stage presence. They look like that. And when I first got into the bodybuilding, I followed all these people,
Yeah.
and everybody only posted when they were lean. So I thought that's what you look like year round.
No,
No,
not at
it's
all.
not, because you go through a cut, you go through a bulk, you go through a cut, and it's really emotional, like bearing, because like I'm gaining weight right now. I'm trying to gain weight to grow, and it's like, why am I trying to gain weight? I just tried to lose all of it. Why am I trying to gain it back? And it's just weird because my mind is like, you're gonna get fat again. You're gonna get fat again, and it. Some days I don't eat. Some days I do eat, and that's wrong. Some days I get my protein from protein drinks.
Yeah.
I don't want to eat.
So in that, first I'll say I actually have somebody I really want to get on this podcast.
Yeah.
They don't know it yet. They're gonna get a phone call. I've been thinking about it. And I'll call them out right now. Uh, you know them. I love John, Mark, and Casey.
Yeah, you should. John Mark.
They
I
are.
will call John Mark right now.
So I've known John Mark for a long time.
Yeah.
So back when I was a teenager, I was at the YMCA. He was just starting out training, and man, what they've built is amazing. But this is why I love them.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I don't know if they listen to this. I've never really just told them this, but what I love about John, Mark, and Casey, and what I've seen, I've had some other friends that are in the bodybuilding world,
Yeah.
and for the longest time, you know, I kind of thought it was I guess you could say a superficial thing. You know, everybody's probably egotistical, all
Yeah.
this stuff. They're in love with their body. They're obsessed with their body. And as I watched some friends of mine as we got older
Yeah.
and they got into it and all that, I started having such an appreciation for it
Yeah.
because, like, I understand now when I look at guys and girls who do bodybuilding and they're chiseled out and all this, I'm not sitting there, you know, lusting over their
Yeah.
body or just looking at their body. When I see it, what I see is like, holy smokes,
Yeah.
dude, the discipline,
Yeah.
the 3 a.m., the 4 a.m.
Yeah.
cardio sessions, the measuring down to every gram of what they ate, the
It's hard.
supplementation, just the routine of a bodybuilder is beyond what most people can ever
Yeah.
fathom. But beyond that, it's so much as I talk to some and I see what John Mark does and what Casey does, especially at Cut and Dry and all that, is it goes so far beyond the body.
Yeah.
Like the strength mentally and emotionally that people in bodybuilding have is incredible.
Yeah.
The resiliency that they have. And
Yeah.
so that's where a lot of people don't realize it because I don't talk about it a lot, but I have so much respect for people who do that.
Yeah.
I have another guy I was a firefighter with, Will Cocky. He does bodybuilding, him and his wife. And yeah, I remember back in the day when we were firefighters, like Will was always strong as an ox,
Yeah.
but yeah, he was nothing. He didn't look nothing like a bodybuilder. And then he got into it, and I've gotten to see from a distance, and then also talking to him a few times, you know, his journey, the discipline. And
Yeah.
that's what I think about every time I see anybody
Yeah.
in that. It's just that discipline, and then that discipline for the physicality of it transitions a lot of them
Yeah.
over into the discipline around mental and emotional and the boundaries and just so many things.
I
So
think the structure of it helped me
yeah,
because knowing I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna do this, eat that. I do better in the structured
yep,
environment. So like the structure of it helped me. And bodybuilders, even you, most of them are covered in tattoos. They look rough, and society as a whole, when you see a person with tattoos, you think, oh, drug addict, oh, uh, loser. You think all these stuff. No, they're some of the sweetest human beings you'll ever want to be
they are.
around. And it pisses me off that people stereotype people with tattoos because people with tattoos, they have a story
Yeah,
and they choose to tell their story through tattoos.
yep,
And just because people, my mom says it all the time. She says, you don't need a tattoo because God says that your body's a temple. Well, yeah, your body is a temple, but your body is also a story. So you can like tell your story how you want. I don't think
yeah,
God's going to keep you from heaven because you have a tattoo.
yeah. Well, and the other thing I'll say this just real quick, and then I want to transition into something is, if you're new into the fitness world, I think you'll agree with this. You can speak to this. If you're new into the fitness world, if you're lost, if you don't know what to do, if you're looking for advice, I can promise you, 9 times out of 10, walk in a gym, find the most ripped up
Yeah.
person, find the person who is a actual bodybuilder, and those are the people who will stop what they're doing and show you any
Yeah.
exercise. They will talk to you about meal prep. They will talk to you about supplementation.
Yeah.
They truly are some of the kindest people.
They
You're
are.
intimidated by them when you
Yeah.
go in, and you think, "Oh, I can never talk to them. They're probably arrogant. They're this. They're
Yeah.
that. Oh, they're taking pictures over here. You know, all that." No, they do. A lot of them I have found they have huge, huge
Yeah,
hearts, and they get a ton of joy out of helping other
yeah.
people start their journey.
I'm glad you said that because this past week I was completely in my head. Like I couldn't even do my own workout and I walked into the gym and I saw this lady doing an exercise. Well, she walked up to a person that looked okay and asked her for the exercise. The person was so completely rude to her. Well, then the next day I was in my head and I couldn't even finish my own workout. And she walked up to me and said, "I've seen you in here every day, and I want to ask you something." And I completely stopped what I was doing
Yep.
and helped her. I couldn't even help my own self. I couldn't even finish my own workout. I have a picture of what I did that day. I sat in the gym and I cried. There was tears on the floor. And she walked up to me and was like, "Will you help me?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, let's go." So I remember helping her and I don't know. I'm glad you said that because just John Mark and Casey's gym. When you walk in, if you don't know something, go up to John Mark, go up to
Yep.
Casey. They will help you. That gym,
Absolutely.
like if you go to a club for, they're not going to help you like John Mark and Casey. John Mark and Casey, it's a gym, but it's also a family place.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yep.
what most true gyms are, a family place.
Yeah.
So, like Planet Fitness and Club 4, you're not going to get the same experience at those places if you go to a personal home-owned gym
Yep.
by
That's
people.
true. Well, let's go into some other parts of your life.
Yeah.
There is a story I do want to get to,
But
if you're okay talking about it. You had an event that happened to you by somebody else that really broke you, that a lot of people have struggled with.
yes, I did.
I don't know if you, and if you don't want to, we don't have to.
No, I will. I did. So growing up, I didn't have many boyfriends. I didn't date. I remember one date I went on, and it was with my mom and dad. We went to a Mexican restaurant, and then we came up here to the Ag Museum. That was it. So I didn't have many boyfriends. I didn't have anything. Well, in 2022, after the rodeo situation happened, I was trying to find something. No, actually, this happened in 2023. It was the end of 2022 that this happened. So, 2023, I was lost. I was trying to find something. Before I found the gym, I was getting on dating apps. I was searching for something. So I got on Facebook dating. Terrible. I do not recommend it.
I second
um,
it.
I was on that. I had some matches. I am very picky. I picked this one guy. He actually told me he was going to take me on a date. So we went on a date. We came up here to Outback. I remember he went to Outback. He actually paid for the date. I should add, the last 2 dates I've been on, I had to pay for. So if you're a guy and you make your girl pay, you're crap. Uh, um, he took me on a date to Applebee's. So that happened, and that night, I'm very brave. I'm fearless. I don't think danger is happening. He invited me back to his house. So I said, okay. He said that there was some mud riding thing going on. I don't even remember it. He lived in Chunky, Mississippi. So there was a mud riding thing going on, and I said, cool, mud, let's go. So that next day, we went and did the mud riding thing, and it was cool. And he said, I would like to see you again. But I had to come home that week. So it was probably my mistake because I was vulnerable and I was honest with him. Texting on throughout that week, he started asking questions about myself. He started asking this and that and that. And then he asked about me being a virgin. And I was honest and I said, yeah, I'm a virgin. I'm saving myself for marriage. And it means something to me because for so long I put my identity in being a virgin because I
Yep.
was like, most girls don't have this. I have this. I thought I was better than most people. Even being
Yeah.
200 plus pounds, I thought I was better than people. Um, so when he found that out, it was like a switch flipped. He started texting me, "You need to come back this weekend. You need to come do this. You need to come do this." And I was naive. I was very naive. And I said, okay. Because I was just happy somebody was giving me attention. So I remember going back to his house and it was okay. He cooked hamburgers that night and it was okay during the day. But then when his friend left and we were by ourselves, he took me into his bedroom and started showing me all his guns and all what he had in his cabinet and showed me all his stuff. And I just thought, oh, he's being a guy. He's showing me all his stuff. Like, nah, nah, nah. And he kept like a pistol out. And I didn't think nothing of it because people keep guns out all the time. And then that night, he got on top of me and he raped me. He took something that I'd been holding on for a long time. And 2023, I was probably 23. I was 23 years old. 22. So that was big that I'd carried that, and he took it from me, and I didn't come clean for a long time. I didn't tell my mom for a month. Uh, he wouldn't let me leave that night. He took my keys. He told me that if I told somebody that it would be bad. So the next morning when he let me left, I remember face planting in his yard. I scraped my face up. The next day I had to put on an act okay because my sister-in-law's baby shower was that day. And it was a really hard day. I acted like nothing was wrong. I didn't even show that I had just been violated the way that I was been violated. Um, but a part of me thought that because he took my virginity, I had to stay with him because I had read the Bible that whoever you gave your virginity to, you had to stay with him. So I still talked to him. I tried to talk to him 2 weeks after he did what he did because I thought I had to. I had thought I had to stay with him, and it wasn't until I finally got enough of it because I found out there's one thing that pisses me off in a relationship. You can hurt me, you can do anything, but if I find out you're talking to another girl, I will be mad at you and I will never trust you again. His friend told me he was talking to another girl, and that made me cut ties with him. Well, the next week later, I downloaded Tinder, stupid. Me being stupid. I was sitting in the bathroom, broken, and I got to talking to this dude, and he was texting me, and it was probably 9 p.m. at night, and I was naive, still naive, and he was like, you should come over, we can watch a movie, and I didn't have anything going on, so I thought he really meant come over and we can watch a movie. Well, I get to this dude's house, and he tries to do the same thing to me, and I'd get away from that situation, and then I come back home. I didn't go back home, I went to the police station, and I said, this dude just tried to do this to me, and a cop literally looked at me and said, "You're lying. You look like a prostitute." And I was like, "A prostitute? What?" And my town had trouble with prostitutes. I didn't know that they had
Mhm.
trouble with prostitutes. So, um, he told me that, and I remember going back home, and I remember waking my mom up and completely sliding down the wall, and I broke down and I told her what happened, and she was like, "Okay." And I didn't know what to do for a long time. So I called Mark Shepard. He's the district. He's something in law. You know what he is? You know him?
I don't know
He's
him.
like some big law thing. And he said, "You need to go report this." So we went back over to Newton County and I wrote out everything that happened to me. I told my story completely. And they said, okay. Well, it took 4 months to get a court date. So I remember going to the court and standing up and telling the most horrendous day of my whole entire life. I was a wreck that day. And it was probably two days later, I get a call that says your case is dropped. We didn't believe you. And I think he knew somebody over there that, because he was from Newton. So I think he knew somebody over there to get him off. But
Yeah.
I, most people they were afraid to come up, and because they don't think people will believe them. Um, and all I can say is speak your truth, speak it, because somebody will believe it. And now that I've been open about it and been around and told people, I've found more of my friends have been raped and violated and abused and all this stuff than I ever thought was possible. I thought I was the only one. It happens so much. People need to start speaking up about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you
Yeah.
for sharing
That's the
that.
first time I've ever really shared fully.
Yeah, I know that's tough. I like what you said there at the end is it, and not just your story
Yeah,
of being raped, but it's literally every story that you can
yeah,
ever imagine, every trauma that you can ever imagine.
yeah.
You're not alone. There's other people who have been through it,
You're not alone.
and the whole Me Too effort and stuff like
Yeah,
that. It's and coming from a law enforcement background, I've also seen it. It
yeah,
happens a lot.
yeah.
Um,
Which I'm not mad at the cop for not believing me. I'm not mad at him.
yeah,
Uh, I think it was part of my story, like, cause if he would have believed me and everything, I probably wouldn't have told anybody. I probably just would have talked to him and just I probably would have let it go because growing up, my mom always taught me keep the peace, let things go, and I'm glad he didn't believe me.
yeah. Out of curiosity, kind of what has been the impact on you since then? Trust wise,
I think
emotionally, how
trusting,
have you healed from it?
I don't trust anybody now. Even getting hurt with the rodeo, I don't trust anybody now. There's probably 3 people that I trust with my whole entire life, and that's my mom, Lacey, and Courtney. Anybody else, I can say I trust you, but I don't trust you fully.
Yeah.
Um, it hurts because I'm scared to go on dates now. Like, I'm scared that people are just gonna do what they did because hookup culture. So it just
Hmm.
scares me, and I'm not like that. So I don't know. I guess I'm still hurt. I don't. I just have a lot of trauma from it.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah,
I mean, that's okay. That's something that I can't imagine
yeah,
trying to heal from
yeah,
that. I have a lot of trust issues for a different reason,
yeah,
and so I can relate to you in the aspect of the trust side.
yeah,
Obviously, I can never ever understand what you went through.
yeah,
I'm really, really thankful for you sharing that. I'm
yeah,
really thankful for you trusting me enough to come
yeah.
on here and share
It.
that.
I'm still learning because, like, I told one other person my story. She worked at the gym, and I guess she was trying to be mean. She would always talk about sex around me, and sex. I'm okay with it, but I get uncomfortable around it. That makes me uncomfortable now, and I know you're supposed to have that for a relationship, to be able to have that to be able to have a relationship, but I now my brain is like, I'll be fine if I find somebody just to go hang out with. Like, I think I've gotten to the point where I'm looking for friends now. I'm not looking for like a boyfriend or a relationship because I'm happy alone. So I don't
Yeah.
need anybody now.
Like I said, when you get to that
Yeah.
point, it's almost kind of dangerous because you
Yeah.
don't need anything else. But as you kind of said it a while ago, but I wanna ask the question point blank. It is so common. There are a ton of women, a ton of girls, tons of dudes also
Yeah.
that have been raped. What is your advice to them?
I think you just learn from it and heal. Like, I don't really know because I don't even know if I can give my own self advice from that. Um, just learn from it and heal and know when you get to the point where you want to share and tell, it's going to help somebody else.
Yeah.
So,
I like that you said that. So I work within a couple of organizations where we do critical incident
yeah,
type stress debriefing, peer support, stuff like that. One of the main things, whether it's on the job stuff or it's life stuff, that's kind of the two categories we look at.
yeah,
You have your on job critical incident stress debriefing type situations. Then you have we all have life. You don't have to wear a badge to have all the problems in life. Anything you go through, our main thing we try to do with people is get them to talk.
yeah,
And that was my problem for until I was 35, 36 years old, was I didn't talk about anything.
yeah,
And so I just bottled everything up and moved on. And it destroyed me internally. It destroyed relationships, friendships. It contributed to the demise of my marriage,
yeah,
all kind of things. And so I like that you say that. Talk about it. talk about it, talk about it, talk about
Yeah.
it. And if anybody tries to tell you not to talk about it, get them out
Yeah.
of your
You
life
need to even
immediately.
rape, domestic violence, anything. So often I've seen women stay in relationships because people are manipulating them. They have a narcissist in their life that are manipulating them, and it just breaks my heart because they think they have to stay there, and they can get out. If you tell somebody they're doing it, you're gonna have someone around you that will
Yeah.
be there for you and will help you get out.
Yeah. Another quick question I have for you. I've talked to you enough to know some of the things you're
Yeah,
doing in your healing journey, but uh, throughout all of your journey, from teenage to now, through everything you've been through, and I will just tell the listeners, we've barely touched tip of the iceberg
yeah.
with your whole story. I know that, but what has been the what has been some of the best tools? What have some of the best disciplines you've developed to navigate through healing? Whether that's, we've talked about the gym. I know that's been a big part. Uh, Therapy, reading books. Other people. It's singing, it's writing, it's podcasting. A lot of people don't realize
Yeah,
I do this because it's healing, it's therapy for
yeah.
me, to talk to people and to learn, talk about my story, hear their story. So, what are some of the things that you've done that along your healing journey that has worked for you?
I think the majority of it is music and probably nature and hiking. When I was at my brokenness, I would always go and sit by the pond and the lake, and then I would always go down. There's a ranch down the road, and they have babies every March through April and May. I would always go see the babies, and I think that healed me more than I know. Remember it healing me. I just thought I was passing time by looking at water and playing with baby horses, but I think that healed me more than I know. And music's a big thing to me. My friends probably think I'm crazy because I will send them Spotify after Spotify after Spotify, and I will send it. They don't even have to text me, and they'll get 50 text messages from me because I would just be sending them music. Um, I know every genre. I'm not genre specified. I love music, and then nature. Just walking in nature and seeing God's creation. That's helped me.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people say that,
Yeah,
and that's something I've been getting a lot more interested
yeah,
in. I've talked with Jordan Jones, who was on here, who has Halos, ex Green Beret. He's talked about some of the healing of nature, of being
that's
outside,
cool.
the physicality. I recently read a book, Think Like a Monk.
Yeah,
I highly recommend everybody read that book. And one of the things I found really interesting about them, when you enter into the monk life, the amount of time and the emphasis that they put on going out into nature. They would do like these daily nature walks where the goal was, you were going to go walk for hours, and it's a form of meditation. And the goal would be, as you walk, to find a leaf
yeah,
that you can pick up, touch, feel, and really. I've been trying to learn more about meditation, and so this was interesting to me. It sounds funny. I'm gonna go find a leaf out in nature,
yeah,
but it's once they found that leaf that stood out to them, they would sit down wherever they were in nature, completely, quiet, surrounded by nature, and they would just really examine every bit of it, and they would really put thought into the growth of that leaf, and it would just be something to focus on and stay in nature. But they also talk about, they would seek out certain waterfalls. They would go and just sit in nature. And actually, when I went through some of my worst days in my journey in Brandon, over by the amphitheater. If people don't know, the quarry trails over there,
cool.
and there are ponds, and there's miles of trail. I would go out there at some of my brokenness moments, and I would just walk those trails, and I would sit by the lake, and there's actually, if you're listening and you're familiar with the Quarry Trails, there's a little pier with a bench on it that overlooks the water right there, and I would sit on it for hours.
That's cool.
I would take headphones, I'd turn music on. That's where me and God had a lot of conversations. That's where I let out a lot of anger. That was my thing, and I've always loved nature. I love going to the mountains, stuff like that. So I always had like an appreciation for it, but I didn't
Mhm.
have what you're talking
Yeah.
about until I went through that.
I didn't I didn't realize why I like water so much. I'm not like a horoscope freak at all, but I'm a Pisces, and
Okay.
a Pisces is a water sign. So that's where I find most peace is by the water. I realize that now.
Yeah.
I
That's
didn't
neat.
know that in 2020.
Yeah. No, you learn so many things about yourself, and that's another. So I follow a lot of guys that anyone who, whether they've been successful in business, whether they're pursuing, betterment of emotional intelligence, mental health, all this stuff. When we talk about suffering, when we talk about struggle, what I've really learned and where I've kind of gotten to is you have to fall in love with the
Yeah.
process. I love E.T., Eric Thomas. He talks about that all the time. If you've ever heard him speak, he's like the number one speaker
I
in the
like him.
world. Unbelievable guy. Everybody really knows him for his until you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, you
Yeah.
won't succeed kind of deal. But he talks about it a lot is you have to fall in love with the process of the
Yeah.
healing. And through falling in love with that and really looking at yourself and figuring out different things that you need and all that, that's where you find the things like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm like with you, the water,
Yeah.
and different stuff. And so that's some encouragement I'd give anybody, whatever you're going through. It's kind of the David
Yeah.
Goggins mentality too. Embrace the discomfort,
Yeah.
embrace the struggle. Don't worry so much about the finish line and getting through it.
Yeah.
Appreciate the moment and what the
Yeah.
moment's teaching you.
I'm
I've
glad
learned
you
more
said
in my
that.
brokenness than I ever learned
Yeah.
in 35 years of being what I thought was okay.
I'm glad you said that because when I first started prepping, when I first got into the bodybuilding and I was prepping for that summer shred and transformation
Yeah.
division, every single day I was in the moment because every single day I saw changes in my body and changes losing weight and new things were happening and I was just in the moment. And then prepping for my second show, I could never stay focused. I was in the moment. I was comparing myself against other people. I was like, I should look better. Why don't I look better? And if I had advice to give people, I would say appreciate the moment. Don't think about the past. Don't think about the present. Think about the moment that you're in
Yeah.
because it'll help. It's
Yeah.
helped me.
And go to war with yourself.
Yeah.
I was listening to some stuff this week or last week from Jay Cutler. I know you know who he
Yeah.
is. If anybody knows bodybuilding, you know Jay Cutler. And he was talking about some stuff about how it was never really about the titles.
Yeah.
It was never about the
Yeah.
stage. He woke up every single day to go to
Yeah.
war with himself.
Yeah.
He never competed against anybody but himself.
Yeah.
And that's so true. And wherever you're at in life, whatever point, whatever you're healing from, anything, the goal is 1% a day. Get
Yeah.
better. And there's so many things right now, man. If I just sat here and told everybody all the things I screw up,
Yeah.
the people I've hurt, the things I've done wrong, all that. Yeah, if I focus on that, what ends up happening is I get into this rumination point where I start going back to calling myself a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And so, I try to really focus on where I've come to from where I was and don't get too focused on where I'm trying to
Yeah.
go with myself, but just every day do something to
Yeah.
try to get better.
I find if I try to focus on the future, I get overwhelmed.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. That's a common theme that I know gets talked about a lot in this room
Yeah.
on various podcasts is you'll overwhelm yourself, the anxiety will kick up, the doubt will kick up.
Yeah.
And that's also where we mess up. We
Yeah.
set these expectations that we can't achieve. So
Yeah.
focus on today, focus on yourself, and keep healing. I absolutely love your story. I love what you're doing. I am I'm so proud of you
Yeah.
because, like I said, we scratched the surface today.
Yeah.
I know you and I have got to learn a lot about you.
Yeah.
You're 26. You have a lot ahead of you, but I am extremely proud of you for
Yeah.
where you've gotten to and the things you've endured. And I hope you know that.
I'm trying. I still don't feel good enough some days.
You don't have, you're going to have those
Yeah.
days. You're going to have those days. I do. I talk to, I mean, everybody does.
Yeah.
David Goggins does. I promise you. E.T. does.
That's cool.
Tony Robbins does. All these guys do. The difference is you still choose to fight that day.
I used to say about David Goggins that I was David Goggins myself.
Yeah.
So now I've added I'm David Goggins plus Jesus in myself.
There you go. There you go. Well, look, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for coming on here and sharing that stuff. It means a lot to me for you to trust me like that, and it's gonna be really good for a lot of people. So,
I hope so. I hope
all
I
right.
can help people.
Is there anything you wanna add at the end? Last bit of advice or anything for anybody?
I think I've told a fib to a lot of people. A lot of people think I'm trying to get into the military, and I have been trying to get into the military, but it's been 8 months of hiccups and mess ups and no's and like I think when God laid the word serve on my heart in 2020, I don't think I was supposed to look at the American flag. I think I was
Yeah.
supposed to look at the Christian flag. So I think I'm gonna do this. I mean, even I've made peace with it, but even a week ago, I texted my recruiter and I was like, "When are we meeting again?" And I got ghosted again. So I think that's a confirmation from God that I'm on the right path
Yeah.
now.
I know we've talked about that, and I'm proud of you for making that decision. So, keep at it.
I'm
Keep at
trying.
it. All right. Well, thank y'all for listening today. I appreciate all of y'all's support, and I hope y'all have a good week.